Welcome back to Rare Elvis Photos. This is Joe Sins. We gotta do some more reading on Child Bride, The Untold Story of Priscilla, Bobblehead Presley. You know, it's interesting. Before we get into the reading, let me say thank you first off to all of you subscribers, brand new subscribers. There's, I would say between 200 and 500 a week that are brand new subscribers on YouTube, and then on my Facebook, it's up to 18,000 really quick there. Just had 10,000, maybe less than a month ago. So 8,000 in a month is great over there. So find me over there, Joe Sins Rarest Photos. I'm sharing some of the same videos I share on YouTube as I do over there, but I do also some different things on Facebook. But what's interesting is we know that Priscilla and, had a lawsuit going on with Graceland, where she's not allowed to use the name Presley. She sold it. I tagged some of these videos, and normally I look for tagging hashtag Priscilla Presley, and it never shows up. Which tells me, first off, Graceland don't want her using that last name, right? I mean, look how easy it would be for Riley to step in and say, oh, she can use it. She can use Elvis Presley music. But she doesn't. Anyhow, thank you to those that have left me super thanks recently. I know somebody said, hey, I tried to buy you a cup of coffee. It was Tupelo honey. I don't know. Maybe it depends on the device you're on. Maybe if you're on an Android, it doesn't work as well as an iPhone. Maybe if you're on an iPhone, it doesn't really work as well as an iPad, computer. I know you can become a member if you just click on... well, that's a good question. It usually pops up as an option, but I'll see if I can figure out how to start putting the link to become a member in the description of every video. So if you start looking back at those videos, there'll be something like that. If you want to leave me a little cup of coffee or super thanks, I think there's different monetary donations is what they are, to be honest, really. Will I buy a cup of coffee with it? Maybe. Maybe I'll buy my wife a cup of coffee. Appreciate you. Either way. So we're in the chapter that says a marriage of inconvenience. So let's start there. Young Priscilla had been Elvis Presley's romantic paragon. If only she could have remained frozen in time. As she grew up and into more adult intimacy, however, Elvis's preferences for making out and playing games, a result of his high anxiety of satisfying superhuman expectations, left her frustrated. Once Priscilla had the baby, the ultimate taboo for Elvis, he no longer desired her in a physical way. That's kind of where we left off this last time. We were talking about that, talking about how Joyce Bova also put in her book in 1997 that Elvis didn't find a mother attractive in that way. But we got to remember that the ultimate source, in a sense, back in that time was released in '85, which was Elvis and Me, Priscilla's book. So I tend to think maybe it was a copycat, maybe it was a way for her. I mean, Elvis didn't stay with very many women very long. Sometimes he'd reach out and communicate to them afterwards for a long time. But Joyce and Elvis didn't work out. Joyce said she got pregnant, and to be fair to Joyce, I've never talked to her, and maybe I will have to talk to her, because I'm going to read her book and talk about it. But, it doesn't make sense, because Elvis and Susan Henning had a relationship, and she had children. There were other women, too, that had children that Elvis had a relationship with. So, I don't think that it was an issue, that, per se. But let's go ahead and start back over. Here. Elvis and Priscilla's intimacy began withering on the vine. She stopped going to Palm Springs on the weekends, annoyed by the cast of female and male regulars, and uninterested still in joining Elvis in his spiritual pursuits, which continued despite Larry's expulsion from the entourage. The Circle G, which had been a fleeting source of joy, it was sold as an extravagance. Priscilla spoke wistfully to a magazine years later of the nights when Elvis would go into Lisa's bedroom and read her nursery rhymes. her happiest moments, this is where I think I stopped last time. She said, though they were few, were when he dropped that wall and became the person he might have been without all of the pressures. That stuck out to me last time. Her happiest moments, she said, though they were few. Now the chasm between Elvis and Priscilla, exacerbated by his attitude towards intimacy with someone who had given birth, became a gulf. Priscilla's frustration revealed itself in snide, embittered comments. She told the Memphis secretary Becky Yancey that it was more fun to be the girlfriend than the wife. And she mentioned to Willie Jane, more ominously, that she wanted no more children. Nancy Rooks, one of Graceland's maids, used to hear Elvis talk about how he wanted 20 children because he was an only child. Huh. Nancy asked Priscilla after Lisa was born if she was going to have another baby, and she said, no more with him. That makes me stop. Makes me think. No more with him. Huh. I told her, but he wants 20 kids. She said, not with me. I'm not having any more with him. I know what love is. I know what attraction is. I know what desire is. I know what wanting to be with somebody forever is like. I know all of that. Priscilla, it doesn't sound like she wants to be with Elvis a single second. Certainly, this fantasy of, she's going around touring about how they were going to be together again and how they loved each other till the end. That ain't love. Wow. Not with me. I'm not having any more with him. It was impossible to know whether Priscilla's attitude was caused by Elvis's physical rejection of her. First off, you can't have 20 kids without being intimate, right? It's another evidence there that this is just a big old story to sell. By her admitted concern about her figure or by her incompatibility with her mate. Presumably it was all three. With Elvis on a separate path, Priscilla spent more time with the entourage, wives, and especially became close to Joan Esposito. She saw herself as, and probably was, the originator of fashion trends, the leader, the female Elvis of the distaff set. All the girls would wear their hair like I did, dress like I did. They emulated me. Basically, what I came back with from California, they tried to do and be. There was, not surprisingly, a certain resentment among the guys' wives towards Priscilla, who was gorgeous and glamorous and who was married to the king of their kingdom. Priscilla's critics referred to Joan Esposito, who was an open, friendly, accommodating sort, as Priscilla's coolie, a yes person, who did the boss's wife's bidding. Some of them didn't like Priscilla, Joe Esposito said after the fact. Patsy Lacker. And recently I found out that Joe Smith didn't care for her, which I really found surprising. Billy Smith's wife really put her down in one of the books. Elvis fans matter, right? Y'all know that there was a bit of a tiff that wasn't caused by me. I think they probably still do, but I mean, what am I going to do? Over-explain to them? I put out a video and stuff because I read the book Are You Lonesome Tonight about Lucy DeBarban, and they made some comments. A little gnat in here. They made some comments that I thought was just a little harsh, not towards Priscilla, but anyways, Joe Smith didn't care for Priscilla. Billy Smith's wife really put her down in one of the books. The Memphis Mafia wives and girlfriends regarded Priscilla as a queen bee. We all know that she got special treatment, Joe said as a matter of fact, because of who she was. And she got resented for that. By the end of April 1968, not even a year after her fairy tale wedding to Elvis, Priscilla's diary telegraphed the eventual demise of her marriage. She was questioning her own sexuality. She wrote, and her physical and emotional needs were not being met. Priscilla began, quite literally, to transform herself. She started with little dance steps, enrolling in a modern jazz class. So the end of April of 68, obviously, is just a couple months after Yisa was born. Modern jazz class, one of Elvis's approved activities for her. Then she enrolled in an acting class. Patricia Crowley took dance lessons with Priscilla that year and remembered her as extremely conscientious, working all day long on her lessons, and all night, I'm sure, right? That's what some people would say. Just kidding. I think she really wanted a career. Patricia, an actress herself, got the impression that Priscilla's chosen career would be acting, though she was still shy about speaking in public. Her drama coach remembered Priscilla hanging on the sidelines, insecure. Once in a while, she'd get over there on the stage, but generally she was just a looker. Performing was good for her. Now, Elvis was absorbed in his own private drama. An effort to revitalize his image as a rocker, which had suffered during his years of making predominantly disappointing B films. His 5-year contract with MGM was ending, and he hoped to make a comeback in a television special for NBC, which was a prospect that both excited and terrified him, for he hadn't performed in concert in years. It was to this end that he was dedicating his considerable energies, nervous and creative, during the greater part of 1968, while his bride immersed herself in dance and drama. Priscilla and Elvis flew to Hawaii in May for an unofficial second honeymoon with an entourage, to disastrous results. What happened? Joe and Joan Esposito, who occupied a neighboring cabana at the Ilikai Hotel with a common wall between the bedrooms, found themselves accidentally eavesdropping to a pathetic exchange between Elvis and Priscilla. "We were going to bed," recalled Joe, and she was trying to have intimacy with him that night, and he didn't want to. Alright, so before we get further and read more on this, let's remember Priscilla had an affair before this trip. I know a little bit about this when it comes to intimacy. And people are different. There's some people that are very physical, and it doesn't matter what's going on. There are some people that are very emotional. And if things aren't right, they don't want to do that. You know? And I believe Elvis was that type. So, if you read into it, Elvis more than likely didn't want to have anything to do with Priscilla after the birth of Lisa for a couple months, because even in the last 10, 15 years, you have to have time to heal. The doctors say 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, right? That's what they say. You know, so that would have been, Aprilish when she started her dance instruction, and then I believe they went, in May, which is literally, if you think about it, that's less than 12 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks. And so they're listening that she wants to do something and he doesn't. Usually you don't want to be intimate with somebody that cheated on you. At least right away, right? I mean, Joni and I both heard it. We were headboard to headboard in these little bungalows. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget Priscilla was screaming. You don't love me anymore since the baby, and we never make love anymore. You never take off your pajamas anymore with me. We're always in the dark. This is 1968. Elvis is 33. He's in pretty peak physical shape. I just don't feel like Elvis trusted her anymore and wanted to give that side to him. That's just how I feel. And I want to know how y'all feel about that too. I mean, I know a lot of y'all know what you think, but this whole Joni and Joe, now Joe was certainly working for Priscilla and on Priscilla's side for quite a while, even during the period this book happened. So, do we even believe that's actually what got said? That. What if it was something like Priscilla screaming, you know, you wouldn't touch me, you didn't find me, you said you didn't find me attractive, I didn't think you found me attractive, you know, I cheated because of that. What if she's talking about cheating, and they're screaming back and forth, and he's talking about it, and that's why they don't want to be intimate? Instead of this, why would Elvis take her to Hawaii after she has an affair? If not to reconnect, the real reconnect. And Priscilla didn't want to have nothing to do with who Elvis was. Nothing. The money, the fame. She'd already figured out that he wasn't this superficial, physical guy that was just going to be wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, no matter what. Whenever she wanted at the drop of a hat because she felt she was attractive. That's not how physicality works. Sexuality. To everybody, right? All right, let's continue on. Thank you, by the way. You know, I don't know if I say it enough. I try to say it. I try to say it at the beginning of the videos as much as I can, just because there are new subscribers that haven't watched all the videos, and there's a lot of y'all that have watched a ton of videos. Yeah, you know, I've had as many as 500 videos I had to delete, and then another 375 I had to delete. That's almost 1,000, 875. Since then, I have had another 550, 600 videos. So, a lot of y'all have watched a lot of those, maybe even all of them. All right, so thank you. All right, let's go ahead. The trip was significant for another reason. Elvis, who had become interested in karate while he was in the army, took Priscilla and the rest of the group to watch an international tournament orchestrated by Ed Parker, a giant in the karate world who had become a personal friend of Elvis's. There, less than 12 months after their marriage, Priscilla spotted the future lover for whom she would eventually leave Elvis. Mike Stone, a 24-year-old half-Hawaiian, one-time Army enlistee, was karate's undisputed bad boy, a world champion for whom competition was a blood sport. The very sort of dark and dangerous rebel Priscilla had been attracted to ever since she was in elementary school. Now, there was some question later about who was fawning over Mike that day, Elvis or Priscilla. Priscilla's version, everyone kept pointing this Mike Stone out. Elvis would point him out, and, you know, I kept thinking, geez, okay, he is good. Ed Parker and Mike later claimed that Priscilla went on and on about Mike to Elvis, who admired Mike as a great fighter, but found him cocky. So Elvis thought Mike was cocky. Here's what I think. I think Elvis definitely admired Mike. I think he thought he was a great champion. He was. He was like, he had the biggest undefeated streak, I think, of any fighter. He was pretty much recognized as the top karate guy, that even Bruce Lee couldn't beat him. What if Priscilla chose Mike on purpose to inflict the deepest wound that she possibly could? It's not outside the realm of possibility. You know, she thinks of, on a base level, an emotional, reactive, physical level. And that makes me kind of think right there that if Elvis did think that he was like a badass, like he said. And if he kept pointing Mike out, that's love, right? That's Priscilla's definition of love. All right, so Mike would later say, Priscilla told him when the two of them were together several years later that she decided the day of the 1968 tournament that she was going to have him one day. A characteristic Priscilla maneuver similar to the way she had pursued and attained Elvis. Priscilla confirmed that Mike Stone did catch her eye, though they did not meet that day. She admitted that there was an attraction, a little bit. I remember just a little, because he was like a cat, but not in a physical way, or not in a way that I was looking. There was a little something, noticing that he was a little different. I had no plans of having any kind of relationship or any kind of lover at the time, because we were still, so I guess, in my memory, it kind of stayed there. With Priscilla, that was tantamount to a tattoo. Yeah. Now, y'all know I had Mike Stone on. And did I press him a bunch of hard questions? No, because he's been pressed a bazillion times by a bunch of different people. It was enough for me to read and to talk to him, for him to say that he had regrets. He was not the person that he was proud of in the past. That is tantamount to a confession that it was wrong. You know, I don't like going back to somebody that's already said they're sorry about something, or that it was wrong, you know, and beat them over the head, right? So I do think Priscilla that day, because all the attention that was given to Mike, became attracted to him. Because she was superficial. She is superficial. She was superficial. According to everybody that knows her, everybody that had been around her. It's all about me, me, me. What can somebody else do for me? And so, since Elvis was not the bad boy that she thought he was, because that's what the media portrayed him as, and then she discovered who he was, and then she was trapped. She had to wait until she got her money to get out, because where's she going to go? The guys that she liked and were intimate with in high school, one of them was already gone. Anyhow. Hope you guys have a good day. I think that's enough to think about, enough for any Priscilla fans to take a look at and go, maybe I need to look at it a little differently. Maybe there's more to this Priscilla than she pays her media publicity people to put out. Until next time, Joe sends Rivers Photos. Thank you so much for being with me. Take care of yourselves, and be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and be just, right? Be just. TCB TLC.